So far, we have seen the basic concepts of ATP and the master data required for ATP. In this chapter, we're going to talk about the configuration required for ATP. Before we move to the configuration, though, we have to understand the different places in the OTC cycle that availability check can be done. There are 3 points in the OTC cycle where availability check can be done. 3 points. This is an important interview question as well. The first check is at the sales order level, the second check at the delivery level, the third at the PGI. Sales order, delivery, PGI. In the sales order, for example, availability check can be done in a variety of ways. Let's go into SAP and see an example. Let me go to VA01 and create an order. Pick a material, say M01, and let's see how availability check works out. Put a quantity, say 200. From this screen, can you tell if the line item is back ordered or not? If the schedule line is checked on, then this line is back ordered. Meaning, if multiple schedule lines exist, then, so like this, there would be a check mark here, and that means it's back ordered. If you select the line item and click on schedule lines, you'll see that the entire quantity here is confirmed. If not, then another schedule line would exist, and the quantity there that could not be confirmed for today would be confirmed for a later date. So that's how you check if a sales order is back ordered, by checking if multiple schedule lines exist. Now, did availability check get triggered already or not? The answer is yes. As soon as you enter the line item, the schedule line is relevant for ATP or availability check, it will automatically be triggered. If you want to check availability again, anytime you change the quantity, for example, let's change this from 200 to say 210. Availability check is triggered again. How do you know? It just happens in the background. Also, anytime you change the plant, like this, availability check is triggered. Or without doing any of these, like changing quantity, changing plant, can you trigger availability check manually without changing the quantity of plant? The answer again is yes. So select the line item and click on this button. It will trigger availability check. And sometimes you might not want to do the availability. Instead, just view the availability. So not actually do an availability check, but just view the availability of the material. So that can be done by clicking on this button. So use this button to just view availability. So this is the situation for M01 for this plant, and the total cumulative ATP quantity is 97925, whatever, meaning that much quantity is available as of now to promise to the customer. So that's how you view availability check. If you want to do availability check, meaning perform an availability check, click on this button and the system will perform an availability check on demand. Not just in the background, but you can do it on demand. So if the system cannot find enough stock, then it will show you a different screen. You must have seen this when we have seen the sales order screen. It will show you a screen like this. If enough stock is not available, the remaining stock will be confirmed for a later point. So this split is based on what is available and how much is not available. So this is how the screen will be split up. So also here you can check if stock is available in a different plant or not. For example, the plant at the line item level, say, is the San Francisco plant, and goods are not available in that plant. So SAP does not go and check if the Los Angeles plant has the material available. So it doesn't change the plant automatically and do availability check. However, you can manually check this by clicking on this button and explicitly select the plant to go do the availability check on. If the stock is available in that plant, you can go back to the line item and change the plant. So that's how you check availability across plants. This is called checking availability across plants. So this is how availability check is done across plants for the same line item. And this is how, in general, availability check is done at the sales order level. As we have discussed, availability check can be done at the delivery level or at the PGA level. The way availability check is done at these three levels is different. So how are they different? Before we answer that question, we have to understand the configuration behind availability check. So these are the moving parts behind availability check. The first four items are configuration. Number one, checking group, checking rule, schedule line category, and delivery item category. Let's start with the checking group. What's a checking group? So this is a field in the sales view of the material master record. It controls how requirements are transferred to MRP. Now, I'm talking about requirements here while the topic is availability check, but just bear with me. For example, if you are selling spare parts, all the requirements for a particular type of spare are grouped together and sent to MRP at the end of the day. So let's expand on this a little bit. Say there are orders coming in, order 1 for a quantity of 10, order 2 for a quantity of 20, 30, 40, so on and so forth. In some cases, requirement needs to be transferred to MRP right away for that particular order. For example, order 1 for a quantity of 10 will be transferred to MRP right away. When we are talking about transferring requirements right away. So similarly, order 2 for a quantity of 20 will be transferred to MRP as a separate requirement right away. Car manufacturing companies typically transfer requirements for cars to MRP this way. One car, one requirement. Typically, for all high-value products or customized products, requirements are transferred to MRP on a per-order basis. However, like we discussed, for spare parts or general consumables, It's okay to club all the requirements together at the end of the day. Like in this case, we have different orders in different quantities, right? 10, and then we have 20, 10 plus 20, and then plus 30, that's 60, and then plus 10, 70, and then plus 15, 85. That's 85, which is the total requirements for the day. 5 orders, the summed up quantity for that material is 85. That's the way it's transferred to MRP. Now, the relevance of this for availability, purely in terms of ATP, is zero, nothing. But this parameter affects your availability check. On the screen though, the material master sales view, the field is called availability check. So it's actually the checking group, but it's visible to you on the screen as availability check. The second parameter is checking rule. The checking rule defines how availability check needs to be done. If you go to SPRO, IMG, sales and distribution, basic functions, availability check and transfer of requirements, and go to availability check with ATP logic. There are other modes of doing availability check like product allocation and rule-based availability check, but they are not in the scope of general SD. For example, product allocation means although goods are available in stock, sometimes you might not give it to the customer. Why? Maybe because there is a shortfall and you want to allocate stock and spread it across all the customers to satisfy all the customers. This is called product allocation. It's actually used very heavily in industries like the apparel industry. In the apparel and footwear industry, take Nike, Reebok. As soon as stock is available, you'll not give it to any customer who asks for it. Depending on the availability and depending on the type of customer, only a certain amount of stock is allocated. That's the nature of the business. Another example where this could be used is for hot products. Say, if Apple has released a new blazing hot product, not all customers will receive all the quantity they ask for. For example, Best Buy is a big customer, right? Reseller, say, and they'll get a good amount of stock. But if you open an online store and ask for a big quantity of this very hot product, you won't get all you asked for because they would be allocating you a certain amount of stock depending on your credibility and your history. So this way of allocating stock is called product allocation. We're not going to discuss product allocation. Why? Because this is not part of the regular SD scope. So in general availability check, this is where the checking groups are defined, and this is where the checking rule is defined. Let's go back to that PowerPoint. For a particular checking group, say 01, what does 01 mean? Daily requirements. And for that checking group, you can specify how the system takes into account the different stock types when doing availability check. And you can define this at the order level or at the delivery level. The second parameter is the checking rule. So the checking rule specifies how stock is calculated. In a real project though, you will rarely have a requirement to change these settings. I have never had to change these settings in any of the projects I've done. But nevertheless, we should understand what these settings mean just in case. So, a checking rule specifies what type of stock is included and what type of inward and outward movements are included. For example, when doing availability check, do you need to include safety stock? So what's safety stock? If you have a stock of say 10,000 for a material M01, 500 will typically be reserved for safety stock, meaning it will only be used for urgent requirements. Then, how about stock in transfer? Say there is a plant in LA and another in San Francisco. Say if there is not enough stock in the San Francisco plant, and a stock transfer has been initiated in the San Francisco plant to get goods from the LA plant. So, stock transfer is basically transfer between plants, either within the same company code or across company codes. One is called intra-company, one is called intercompany. Point being, if goods are not available in one plant, either for the customer or their own personal consumption, a stock transfer order can be raised to procure it from another plant. But say the goods are in transit, they have not reached the San Francisco plant. They're still in the truck somewhere between LA and SFO. The question is, do we need to consider that as an ATP stock or not? If yes, you need to check the stock and transfer on. And another one is the include quality and inspection stock. Every product typically undergoes some kind of quality inspection, right? Not necessarily, but most stock typically includes some kind of quality inspection. So this control indicates if the stock currently being quality inspected can be included in ATP or not. Sometimes, depending on the nature of the product, it's included, not included. Now, typically, it doesn't really vary based on the nature of the product. It's mostly based on the business process. So for certain types of orders, it's included. For consignments, it might not be included, so on. Include blocked stock. So there are typically three types of stocks in inventory management: unrestricted stock, quality stock, and blocked stock. Stock can be blocked for a variety of reasons. Say, after quality check, you have found some stock to be defective. What do you do with that stock? You might not send it right away back to the vendor, but you put that in blocked stock so that somebody does not use it without knowing that it's bad stock. Overall, though, this section here indicates which stock to include and which stock to not include. The default setting for sales orders say do not include any of the stock types. Generally, the only stock that's considered for sales order ATP is unrestricted stock. The next block is inward and outward movements. For example, if the customer asked for a stock of 200 and we only have 150 available, so we have a deficit of 50. If we had issued a PO, purchase order, for a quantity of 1,000 to a vendor, say 10 days ago, the stock is going to come through in 3 days. Then it essentially means that we have the entire stock requirement of 200. So if the customer asked for goods 3 days from now, not today, 3 days from now, we can very well say that we can deliver the goods 3 days from now. Why? Because we're going to receive goods in 3 days. So that is, even though you don't have the deficit of 50 right now, right? Why? Because there is an expected inward movement of goods from the vendor in 3 days. And the customer requires it in 3 days, not today. So this field indicates whether we need to include inward purchase orders or not. Include reservations, include purchase requisitions, include sales requirements. I never had to change these requirements in any of my projects. Once again, a checking rule is an inbuilt rule in SAP. Inbuilt meaning you cannot change it. You see, A is sales order, B is delivery, and so on. Can you create your own? Like C for cash sale, D for rush order? No, you cannot. These are inbuilt rules. They cannot be changed. All you can do is to configure the A or B or C. And what does a checking rule control? It controls what stock types are included in ATP, what kind of inward and outward movements are included in ATP calculation. So if somebody asks a question about checking rule in an interview, you can give examples about safety stock, quality stock, inward POs, stock transfer orders, and so on and so forth. What's included, what's not included. To summarize, we have two parameters in ATP configuration basically. Checking group and checking rule. Checking group is at the material master level in the sales view. The checking group along with the checking rule is going to define how ATP is done. Like what stock is included, what kind of movements need to be included, so on and so forth. So this is defined at the line item level, meaning, for example, line item 10 M01 for which checking group could be 01. And line item 20 could be a different material for which a checking group could be different. So the ATP being done at line item 10 could be completely different from the ATP being done at line item 20. The third important parameter is the schedule line category. This is almost a binary control, meaning we can either switch it off or switch it on. And that is controlled using this flag. We've already discussed this during schedule line category configuration. I'm not going to go into the details of it. The next parameter is the delivery item category. Remember, availability check can be done at the sales order level or at the delivery level. At the order level, availability is controlled using the schedule line category. At the delivery level, availability is controlled using the delivery item category. Same thing here. You can either check it off or check it on. It's not. It doesn't have a broad set of controls. It's also binary, on or off. Again, this is very rarely touched. So if for some reason you want to disable it or enable it at the delivery level, you can use this parameter to change the way standard SAP works. Okay, so let's summarize what we have learned in this chapter. There are 4 parameters that can be used in SAP to configure the way availability check works. Checking group, checking rule, schedule line category, and delivery item category. Checking group comes from the material master. And we have discussed some examples of a couple of checking groups: individual requirements, collective requirements. Checking rule is hard-coded in SAP, at the order level, consignment level, delivery level. You can change it. In that, we have seen different controls like, stock types, inward, outward movements, etc. And after that, we have seen schedule line category, which was or which is more or less an on and off, which is used to control if availability check should happen or not happen. And finally, we have the delivery item category, which is also an on and off switch used to control if availability check should happen or not happen at the delivery level. And of course, if you are not able to satisfy any of the business requirements with these parameters, you can always go for user exits.